Hello, welcome back to the channel, and today we will be I suppose it's a series now, and we'll be continuing our series on looking at some older games and then telling you what we like about them, what we don't like, and then comparing and sort of contrasting more modern games that have been released subsequently. So today we'll be looking at I think it's a 2009 Bruno Cathala area control game called Cyclades. And like we said, we're going to give you a little rough overview of the rules. We're going to tell you what we do like, what we don't like, and then we'll tell you whether or not it's still relevant compared to other games of its ilk in this modern era. So if you enjoyed this video, if you're new here, then consider subscribing to the channel, and leave a comment down below once you've seen this video, and we'll see you once we've blindly run into oblivion. Board games 4K. So Cyclades, it's a 2009 area control sort of war game by Bruno Cathala and Ludovic Malebranche, and in this one it's set in ancient Greece, and it uses the classical civilization type Greek mythology with the creatures and some of the heroes and all that sort of stuff. And in this one, what you'll be trying to do, you'll be trying to get two metropolises, and the way you get metropolises is you need to have 4 philosopher cards in front of you, or you can get 4 different types of buildings like ports or forts or temples or universities, and then they transform into a metropolis. On your turn, what you'll be doing, you'll be bidding on the favour of the gods, and what you'll be doing, you'll have a load of cash, and you'll be spending that cash to bid on the favour of a god like Ares, which will give you manipulate your armies, move your armies. You've got Poseidon that will allow you to move your ships and build ships. You've got Zeus, which will help with priests, which will reduce the cost of bidding and monsters. And then you've got Athena, which will give you philosophers, which will, like we said, if you get 4 of those, then you can build a metropolis, right? Yeah, on your turn, what you'll be doing, you'll be putting your marker on one of the gods and then bidding a certain amount, and then the other players can bid on their turn, and if they could bid on the same god, but they have to bid a bit more, but then they boot you out of that god's favour and you have to go somewhere else. So eventually somebody is going to be left with no choice but to visit Apollo, who does nothing but just gives them a bit of gold, right? So once you've established your favour of the gods, that will also establish turn order. So you go from the top, who goes first, down to the bottom, and then you resolve the favour of the gods. So like we said, Ares will allow you to manipulate your armies, Poseidon will allow you to manipulate your fleets on the water, Zeus will give you a reduction in the cost of stuff with priests. So 1 priest will reduce the cost of anything by 1, and then Athena will give you philosophers where you need 4. They also allow you to build buildings, so Ares will allow you to build forts, Poseidon will allow you to build ports, temples will be Zeus, and universities Athena, and then once you get 4 of them, you get a metropolis. 2 metropolises, you win, right? There's also a little bit of combat. So what you do is you take the number of troops or fleets that you've got, and you roll a die and you add that together, and you could play some cards, monsters might be able to help you, and then the winner will lose that amount of fleets and have to retreat. Okay, and one of the good things about this game is that you've got a big stack of cards that allow you to purchase the abilities of certain creatures. So certain creatures will come out, and you can buy those creatures, and then they stay in play for that round. Or you might have cards that you have a one-shot use, or that you have a permanent ability. Siren's in there. You've got the Kraken. You've got the Minotaur. You've got Medusa, and all of these abilities relate to the sort of classical characters that are in Greek myth. So yeah, once somebody gets 2 metropolises, the game is over, and that's Cyclades. So what do we like about Cyclades? So the first thing is the theme. It's absolutely fantastic. I love the Greek myths. When I was a kid, I grew up with Jason and the Argonauts, Clash of the Titans, all that. You had a very Harry house and stuff, and yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. We love the theme. it's really strong here. You've got the human element, you've got the deities, and then you've got the mythological creatures. So you've got this sort of this triangle of triangular elements that all come together in one wonderful whole. So yeah, the theme, superlative, fantastic. So there's another thing that I personally like. I mean, some people don't like it about this game, is that the build-up is slow and methodical. You know, you're planning ahead, you're thinking, I'm going to need to build my armies up in this turn, and then I'll focus on getting that, and then you've got to watch what everyone else is doing, because you've got to see, you know, as my mate he's got 3 philosophers, we've got to do something about that, or they're encroaching a little bit too close to one of my buildings that are going to take over, you know, and then they might be able to build a port and then turn that into metropolis. So you've got to keep your eye on your own game, but you've also got to keep your eye on everyone else, and that's part of the trick, is balancing in your head all of these different aspects, like knowing how you're going to expand out and how fast you're going to do it, but also limiting and watching what your opponents, where they're coming from, and trying to stop them from A, nicking your stuff, and B, just slightly sort of getting those 4 philosophers, or having a couple of buildings that they can turn into metropolises if they nick some of your gear. So yeah, that's fantastic. It's a really fantastic point of this game. So the fact that this game is still being supported, I mean, not long ago we picked up the Monuments expansion, which adds extra sort of buildings with special abilities. You've got the Titans expansion, you've got the Hades expansion, you've even got that Kemet crossover where you can use the monsters from Kemet in this, and vice versa. So yeah, the fact this game has got so many expansions and it's still being supported, and it doesn't get old. It's been around for 10 years now, and yeah, come on Matagot, let's have another one, let's have another expansion. So the main draw for me of this game, aside from the theme and aside from everything else, is the auction system is unsurpassed. I mean, Bruno Catala is a bloody genius like creating this, because you find yourself sort of overbidding just that little bit, so that other people think that you desperately want to go to Poseidon, you desperately want to go to Ares, but you don't. You just want to get somebody to overbid so you can reduce their ability to buy that monster, and then you get kicked out and you get what you really want on the cheap, you know what I mean? So yeah, the auction system is absolutely stellar. I mean, I don't think I've seen an auction system that's beaten this, or it's more exciting than this, and you know, it's just a perfect complement to the theme, to the area control, and yeah, if you like auctions and that sort of thing, but you also like area control games, then yeah, Cyclades is fantastic. So what don't we like about Cyclades? Well, the main con for us about this one is probably the combat system is a little bit dated. Do you know what I mean? Like, essentially you just take the number of troops you got, and you take the number of troops that your opponent's got, and then you roll a die and you add the number on, I think it's 0, 1, 2 or 3 on the die, I think, and you add that, and whoever gets the most wins. And that's the random element of the die roll is a bit feeble, and it's a little bit dated. I mean, if you look at games like Rising Sun, the combat mechanism on that is okay, it's more complicated, but it's more exciting, it's more developed. Rising Sun and even Cry Havoc, you know, the combat mechanism in that, it's for area control games. They seem to fit more, and this does seem a little bit dated. So that's probably the game's biggest downfall, is the very basic and random combat mechanism. Yeah, another thing is, even though we've said that one of the pluses of this game is the plethora of expansions, but the problem is that if you chuck them all in, the game suffers from a lot of bloat, and it becomes unwieldy, and especially with new players, you can't chuck in the Titans expansion, you can't chuck in the Hades expansion, or all the other stuff, or the Monuments expansion, and expect newish players to understand and absorb the rules, right? Because essentially one of the things we like about Cyclades is that its simplicity and its smoothness, and it's easy to teach, it's easy to learn. But if you want to throw in the expansions, it becomes this big beast. You know, you've got to be selective. So, you know, there's this part of me that's torn. It's like a double-edged sword, and I really want to chuck everything in. I want to throw in all the heroes. I want to throw in the monuments, but at the same time, I'm like overwhelmed, and I can't do it. So yeah, it sort of suffers from that sort of Arkham horror, Eldritch horror thing, where it promises a nice, smooth and streamlined game, but over time it's just become this huge out of control monster. And yeah, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because it's got its place, but you need to start off with the vanilla game and then gradually work your way through it. So we were talking about the mythological creatures, and you have 3 come out and then they gradually become cheaper as turns go on, and then they drop off and then you replace them. But the problem with that is the turn order may dictate that you miss the monsters that you may really want. Okay, so you say that the auction system should mitigate that, and you should select your deity dependent on the monster, but the monsters are so secondary, they're almost like a sort of an aperitif to the deities. Yeah, so you may miss a sort of a really important monster that you want just because the favourite of gods is more important. So to summarise Cyclades, is it still worth playing? Is it still worth buying in 2019? So this game's 10 years old. I mean, good grief, we've been playing this since, I don't know, before the dawn of time, it seems. And yeah, Bruno Catala's created well, the fact it's still in print and people are still playing, I'm still talking about it, is testament to its timelessness. And you know, it's nailed the Greek myth. Nobody's going to come along and go, well, we'll do a better area control game set in Greek mythology. But yeah, the fact you can get the Titans expansion, which changes the map up and it adds loads more monsters and stuff, and that Kemet crossover is brilliant idea. You can bring in, you know, the monsters from Kemet. It seems like this set the standard that other games followed. You know, so you got obviously Matagot, you got Kemet. Obviously, Kemet came after this, but was produced by Matagot, and it took a lot of the ideas and the seeds that were planted by Cyclades and developed it. But the games are different enough that you can own both. I mean, we've got that, both of them down there. We've got the Kemet Seth. We've done a review of Kemet Seth, which is another story. But the games that came after this that use these mechanisms, like Inish, Cry, Havoc, and even Rising Sun, you know, I think they've struggled to emulate the simplicity and the sheer basic nature of this one. You know, they've really tried hard to differentiate themselves, and in doing so, they've sort of I don't know, they've become victims of their own desire to match the timelessness of this one. And yeah, I think the game that comes closest for me to rivaling this one for you know, sheer enjoyment and nature of conflict in this one is Rising Sun. And it's got, in a sense, it takes, Rising Sun takes the ideas from Cyclades and takes the combat mechanism from Cry Havoc, and it merges them together. But I would say that this Cyclades is the better game because there's more stuff available for it. So to summarise, I mean, at the end of the day, Cyclades is one of the greatest games ever made. You know, if you like area control, and you like the Greek myth theme, and you like board games, then Cyclades is definitely, you need to have it in your collection. I mean, we've done a top 100 games of all time over Christmas, and this was our number one. It's okay, the combat mechanism is a bit basic, but we can live with that because the game is basic, right? And that's it. That's what we like. There's just enough juggling and stress in your head, and there's no staring at the board for hours on end. It's just you make your bid, you take your chances, you throw your troops out, and then you have a big old punch up. You might get knocked back, but you can build back up. And you know, even if you do get knocked back, you've still got the outlet of the philosophers, and you can always make things cheaper for yourself if you can't get that, if you can't get the gods that you want. So there's multiple paths to victory, and Cyclades is one of the greatest games ever made. What more do you want to hear, eh? So like we said, if you enjoyed this video, if you want to see more videos about board games, card games, role-playing games, not those sort of games, but please subscribe to the channel, click one of the buttons that's floating around in the ether somewhere, and we will see you in the next video.